super excited today to introduce you to one of our amazing Limitless speakers, my friend Alyssa. So Alyssa J. Dillon is a business coach. She's an entrepreneur. She's a former CFO. What Alyssa does is she works pretty specifically with finance professionals on helping them grow and scale their businesses through both marketing and leadership. And the reason I'm so pumped to have Alyssa at the event is I like to say that Alyssa and I kind of grew up together, like our businesses. We started, I think we connected back in like 2018, 2019. She was I think she was a little ahead of me in getting started. And then you've had a really cool story and evolution to, your first 7-figure cashier last year, which is really amazing. So Alyssa, thank you so much for being here, for serving our audience.
Thank you. Yes. So excited to be here.
I know and I'm so excited for your talk as well, but I'd love to hear, because one of the things, like I said, I love, and I said this before we hit record about Alyssa, is her journey has not been linear in any way, shape, or form to getting where she is right now. But what I have loved in watching as an observer of Alyssa's journey is her commitment and her tenacity and her integrity and her stick-to-itiveness. Like, it didn't matter, right? There wasn't like, I'm going to pack up my toys and go home because this didn't go the way I wanted it to. You've had such a cool journey. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what that journey has looked like to having your first really massive year, and then what your plans are for 23.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ryan. I have to start this with, when I set out to be an entrepreneur, I didn't start this journey with thinking I'm going to be a millionaire. Right? That was not the beginning thoughts. The beginning thoughts of this journey were, I hope I can make enough money with my small business to contribute to my family and pay my student loans, because I had went to a private college to be an accountant, and pay my cell phone bill, pay my own insurance, pay for my car payment, and really just be able to pay for vacation, so it wasn't all on my husband. And I've always been pretty independent, financially independent. I bought my first house when I was 20 years old. So for me, it really was about just creating some financial independence. So I didn't have to rely on my husband, even though I'm very fortunate to have married a man who is, he's an engineer. He's incredibly successful in what he does. So I could have been a stay-at-home mom, and I quit my job, and a lot of people in my circle actually wanted me to do that. There was a lot of pushback when I was like, well, I'm going to start a business. And they're like, why don't you just be a stay-at-home mom? And I was like, no. So I want to start this with saying, like, wherever you're at right now, your ultimate goals, they get to change, right? Your story gets to change. And not everyone around you is going to understand that when they do change. Because when my dreams shifted from making enough money to just help my family to, well, I want to build an actual empire, and I want to be a millionaire, not everyone was on board with that. They didn't really understand this shift in energy. They didn't understand that I was going to be working full time now, and I was going to put my kids in childcare, and I was going to be recommitted to working full time when I had just quit my corporate job. So that's really how my story started, is once I realized how easy it was to make money, and I can explain that in a second, how easy it was to make money. I realized making money is easy. And I figured that out. And I was like, man, this is pretty easy. I bet I can make more of it. I bet I can make a lot of it. Shoot, I bet I can make $1 million. And so that's what I set out to do. But I didn't do it nearly as quickly as I thought I would. I thought that it would be 2 years, 3 years. And I was aiming at the time, I think I was about 28 when I started my business, and I wanted to be a self-made millionaire by the time I was 30. I didn't actually do it until I was 33. And that's not to say that I ever failed. I kept my eye on my goal, but through that journey, what was so important was that I was true and honest with myself about what I needed as a human before I focused on all of the financial goals I had. And Ryan talked about, my journey wasn't linear, and that was because I needed to meet my needs as a human. And it wasn't always about going after the money. It was, sometimes I have to take a step back and take care of me.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that. Cause I do think that there's this stigma that like, if you're running a business, especially online, if you're not doubling and tripling your revenue year over year over year, like something is wrong. Can you talk about how you were able to not get caught up in that and be able to really have the self-discipline, Alyssa, to say, I'm going to stay where I am, and not to say you weren't doing amazing things, right? But it wasn't like, okay, well, we had our first $500,000 year, now we got to go. Like there was some times where you had to push pause. And like you said, you had to take care of yourself. You had some health stuff. There was some, you got married, all the things that have happened on your journey over the past 5 years. How were you able to keep your spirit high and not get caught up in that I failed because I'm not having hockey stick growth year over year?
Yes. That's that right there, the hockey stick growth, man. And we join this online entrepreneur world and we think if we're not having hockey stick growth, well, something must be wrong with us. And here's how here's how I figured out that hockey stick growth wasn't all it's cut out to be. I get to hang out a lot around some people who have some hockey stick growth. Yeah. Specifically some women and some men. Mm-hmm. And when I was hanging around them, I realized that even though they were having these great financial successful years, they weren't necessarily happy. Right. Everything looked perfect on the outside, right? They were showing off their business wins. They're showing off their revenue wins. Mm-hmm. But they were missing time with their families. They were missing time with their kids. They were spending 12 hours in their office a day. They weren't doing the things, they weren't being true to who they said they were going to be when they started their business. Right. And I realized that some of the people that, Ryan and I grew up together, and there's other people that grew up with us that shot up and became more successful than we are currently. And I've had the pleasure of having conversations with them. And often those conversations are sometimes sad. I decided early on that taking care of me, taking care of my family, and being true to who I am was going to be more important than hockey stick growth and keeping up with the Joneses in order to keep appearances. Right. I think my integrity and my transparency with one of the things that I went through, I got married, but in one foul swoop, I almost got divorced because I had focused very heavily on my business one year. And truthfully, like my husband didn't understand it. I was mad at him for not understanding it. And I was like, this is going to help us. Like I'm putting in all this time and effort because I'm trying to make sure that we have more financial freedom. Like you don't understand me. And ultimately we had a riff, and I realized like, man, at the end of the day, if I'm successful, that's great. But if I'm not successful with the man I love, then what am I doing this for? So I took a break and I took a step back. And that's one of the things that I needed to do, where I see a lot of entrepreneurs that end up divorced because they're not willing to keep their eye on what's important. Now, I think I've been unfortunate and fortunate in that I've lived a lot of life for being so young. Right. And I've had a lot of experiences that most people at my age don't typically experience. Sure. So I had some really great perspective on what's important. And it's, money isn't all it's cracked up to be. Right. We put a lot of weight on money, right? But it's not all it's cracked up to be if you're not happy at the end of the day. If if you don't feel loved, if you don't love yourself. We think, oh, as soon as I make this amount of money, then I'm going to feel this way. Then I'm going to be this person. And that's not true. In fact, when I hit that 7-figure year that I had been waiting for, that I couldn't wait, I had all of these thoughts like, oh, when I do 7 figures, everything will be easier. When I do 7 figures, this is going to happen. And none of that happened. I didn't feel any different. It was a random Monday when my team told me, and I was making cookies with my kids, and I was like, cool, like thumbs up. My hands are covered in flour. Like I'm playing with my kids. Like it meant nothing. Right. And was it a milestone? Sure. Did I celebrate it a little bit because it was something to celebrate? Yeah. But the dopamine hit from hitting a goal is minuscule compared to the dopamine hit that you get from loving yourself and being loved and having love around you.
So good. And what I love is what you told me before we hit record is that your goal, you hit the 7-figure year in 22 is actually, you're not like, okay, cool, we did 1, let's go do 3. Like your goal, you want to talk about like what's your intention is for 23.
Yeah. So, I absolutely have big goals for 2023, and I, now that we've done a 7-figure cash year, I'm like, okay, let's do 5 million, right? Like now let's do 5. But do I think I need to do that in 2023? No. If it happens, am I available for it to happen in 2023? Sure. But not at the cost of my peace, not at the cost of my health, not at the cost of my family. And if anything, my goal this year is to recreate what happened last year, but simpler. In order to hit 7 figures, really what it takes is learning to become a leader. And it's not about having the best marketing skills. It's not about having the best sales skills. It's really being the captain of a ship. And that's what I had to learn. And learning that and understanding that this past year and really getting some systems in place in order to bring on that level of client as well, right? A lot of people are like, I want to hit $1 million, but it's like, can you even handle $1 million of clients? Because I can tell you, I thought I'd be able to, but we found some holes in our client success methods as well, right? We hit capacity relatively quickly and we had to bring somebody else on. So we learned some lessons. We learned what our capacity was. And now that we know those lessons, it's like my real goal for 2023 is to be able to make $1 million even simpler with even more ease and less lessons to be learned, with higher profit margins because I'm paying less people and I'm paying for less mistakes. I made some really big investments last year that didn't end up paying off in like marketing efforts and things like that didn't get me the return on investment that I wanted. And that's okay, right? But now I don't have to relearn that lesson, luckily.
Amen. I love that. And thank you for sharing that, because I think that, one of the big things that's really important to us to be in the room, and the reason why we created this Limitless event is around like defining success for yourself, right? Like not having to look outside and say, oh, that's what everybody else is doing, so that's what I think I have to do. And I think that's probably been one of the coolest things that I've watched you do is say, F everybody else, this is what works for me, and stand in that very proudly. And I think that's just really incredible. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you one more question, and I want people to know where they can hang out with you before Limitless in April. What does, like when I say the word limitless, like what does that mean to you, Alyssa?
I think about limitless and there's no boundaries for yourself. There's no fence or gate or anything that's in your way of what you want. Like if you can dream it up, if you can think it up, there's no industry standard you have to follow. So often I think in entrepreneurship, we think that there's a perfect blueprint. We think that there's a perfect guideline, or the guru said that I have to do it this way. And the reality is the the people I work with and the people that I see be the most successful, what they have is they have these incredible skills, and they go out and they start showcasing those skills, and they start making money. And it's easy for them to make money. And this is what happened to me. I started showcasing my skills, and it became easy. People wanted to pay me. But then as soon as we start listening to someone else gets in our head, someone else gets in our ear, and they put these boundaries on us. They limit us in what we're supposed to do, right? Oh, you have to have a webinar. You have to do it this way. You have to do it this way. Oh, you have to run Facebook ads this way. And they put limits on how we should grow. And when they do that, what we see is we see our income decline, right? We see things change for us. And it's like, why is it not easy to make money anymore? Well, you allowed somebody to put boundaries and limits on what is possible for you. So it's not to say don't hire mentors. It's not to say don't be with mentors. What it is to say is have mentors who empower you to focus on your intuition and focus on who you need to be in order to be successful. Stop looking for the blueprint. You are the blueprint.
Amen.
You are the blueprint.
So good. All right. Before we wrap up, where can people hang out with you? If they're like, hey, I want to learn more about Alyssa and the amazing work she does with her clients, where can they come hang out with you?
My Facebook group is probably the place I hang out the most. And that Facebook group is where financial pros become CEOs. I'm also on Instagram. The Alyssa J. Dillon is my Instagram handle. So we hang out there, do reels, all that kind of thing.
So good. So fun. Awesome. Well, thank you, Alyssa. We cannot wait to hang out with you in April and hear more of your genius. Thanks, friend.
Thank you. Mwah.